Do you have a favorite currency pair?
Whichever one's making me the most money at the
That's a
time.
great answer. That's a great answer.
Aside from that, I'm not buying. It's different every year. I've had pairs that dollar Canada, for example, is one where I've had some amazing years with dollar Canada because I've taken some what I call home run trades where
Yep.
the technicals happen to line up with the fundamentals, and you know Canada's pretty easy to predict with fundamentals because they don't kind of BS. They kind of do what they want to do.
Sure.
Japan is the same way. Japan doesn't BS. They'll come out and be like, "Hey, we're devaluing our currency. You guys have at it."
Right.
You get stuff like the euro or the dollar, and we kind of we say all this stuff on both sides. Don't really give a clear answer about what's going on. So those pairs from time to time, if I'm shooting for big home runs, but aside from that, I just look at them as non-biased. Whatever has the setup is my favorite.
Sure. No, that's like I said, that's a great answer. Whatever's making you money, we'll put that down somewhere. Someone write that down. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today is episode 3 of our new podcast, Real Traders Podcast. And today we have Akil Stokes coming on. He is a legend in the industry. He has been on YouTube and trading for over a decade, I believe, just about a decade at least on YouTube, which is amazing. In this video, we talk all about some technical aspects of his trading approach, and I've actually learned a lot of things from Akil and from his team over the course of my career as a trader. He's one of the people that I've watched for a long time, so I'm really, really excited for you guys to see this conversation with Akil, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I am here with the one and only legendary Akil Stokes. Welcome to the podcast, Akil. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I feel a little bit of pressure now as you put the legendary out there, but
you deserve it, man. You've been in the game. I looked at your YouTube channel and I thought I had been around for a little while. You have been around for a while. When was the first time you made a YouTube video around trading?
Sheesh, I feel old now. I want to say 2012 maybe. I don't even remember back that far, but yeah, I think 2012 is when I first ventured into those waters, and it's cringeworthy to watch those old ones.
Of course, I have the same thing going on. Well, Akil, for people who don't know you, let's just kind of give you a chance to introduce yourself. Obviously, I've been a fan. I've watched your content for a long time, and that's why we asked you to come on today. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background, where you live, where you come from, what kind of trading you do, whatever you'd like to tell about yourself?
Sure, I'll try to give a brief version. I'm located here in the U.S., Pennsylvania, so the Northeast. Born and raised, moved a little bit away from where I was born at, but still in the general location. I got into trading right after college. I graduated college right around the time of, I guess what they're calling the Great Recession here in the U.S. and had no plans for a job or anything like that. So I signed up for grad school to buy myself 2 more years of kind of not having an answer to what I'm doing for a living.
Sure.
And really got into investing just because it was the next step in the process. I'm fortunate to have a father who taught me about money. So he taught me about saving money, taught me about, back then putting it into the bank and savings accounts and getting interest. And as I grew up, we kind of went through the different phases of, hey, savings account is better than your mattress, up to like certificates of deposits, money market accounts. We even had some bonds. And after graduating, I had some money. I've worked since the age of, like 14. I don't really buy anything. So I had some money saved up and I said, hey, Pops, what should I do with it? And he said, hey, dip a toe in investing. And I dipped a toe into it. Long story short, I ended up falling in love with it. And I took the jump to saying, hey, this is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that will allow me to really achieve my dreams of not only financial freedom, but freedom of time and time flexibility. And I went for it, failed for a pretty long time, but got my head on straight, became successful. And now that's what I've been doing for a living. And I help others hopefully achieve the same goals as myself.
Very, very cool. Yeah, and I happen to know you've been all over the place. I know you've worked with. You're still doing stuff with Tier 1 trading.
Yes,
You're a coach there. Yep. And you've also I believe you do track and field. Is that like kind of another thing that you're into?
Yeah. So I've been an athlete my entire life, mainly football, basketball, baseball. Massive soccer fan now, but I ran track at school after a few injuries in football. And I went back to coach just because, they were helping out with grad school. I fell in love with coaching. And one of the reasons I pursued trading is because there was no other job that would allow me to still coach. Every job I got offered,
Yes.
they would have to make a decision. And I'm telling people like, hey, I'll wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and come back and come in. But back then there was no kind of time flexibility. It was 9 to 5. And
Yeah.
one of the things I liked about trading, I said, hey, I can make a living off of this. I can work my schedule and have it still allow me to do the things that I really love and enjoy. And it's worked out perfectly for me. So I'm fortunate.
Hey guys, I don't mean to cut into the podcast, but I do just want to let you guys know that if you're not already in our free Discord for traders, we share every single day valuable trading tips and trade setups for the next few days. If that's something that you're interested in, get access to it for free. There's a link in the description to join, and see you there. Well, so there's so many things I'd love to ask you about because, like I said, I've watched bits and pieces of your channel. I've seen you do lots of different trade breakdowns and all sorts of stuff. So I have a little bit of experience kind of looking at a lot of advanced charts and stuff like that. Can you tell us just a little bit about like sort of your trading style and maybe also like how you kind of found your trading style, which is also a fun question to play around with. So answer it however you'd like.
Yeah, sure. I would consider myself a price action trader, so I'm fully technical. Over the years, I pay more attention to the fundamental analysis, mainly to stay away, but a little bit of the former investor in me, and that's how I got started as an investor in the stock market. I still do pay attention if there's any, kind of longer term moves I can pick up on, but mainly I pay attention to the price chart and I look for classical patterns that have been happening for really the beginning of time in the market. So your head and shoulders, your, double tops, double bottoms, your compression patterns, your flags, your breakouts, along with some what we call advanced patterns as well. But, really the bulk of my analysis is based off of the ability to read a candlestick, understand and interpret the story that the candlestick is telling me, understand the story that the grouping of candlesticks are telling me at whatever specific location we're at, and make a prediction off of that. I would say that as I get older and I'm a student of the game, I'm getting more and more into indicators now that I understand them better. Beginning of my journey, and I've tried basically everything in trading, and most of the stuff I tried the wrong way. So when I tried, when I had indicators back a long time ago, I was that trader that had like 15 indicators on their chart and they all had to align at the same time to give me a signal.
Yep.
I had no idea what these indicators told me, but I saw them on YouTube somewhere, so I threw them on there. And I was just using them the wrong way. I thought like an indicator was the say all be all, or I was using it the wrong way. As I gained more experience, I found a very nice kind of sweet spot for indicators in my trading, understanding that they are complements. They can help with what I'm doing on the price chart. I may have to tweak them to show me what I want them to show me, but they can be very helpful. So I would say the next phase of my trading is getting more, sticking with price action, but also becoming more indicator based and using them to help a lot in my trading as well.
It's interesting that you say that, Akil, because I feel like I've kind of done a similar pathway. I'm definitely like primarily like when it comes to the technical side, I'm very, price action oriented. I like to follow trends and, I like to trail stops. That's kind of like a flavor of how I approach the market. How do you, and this is always a fun one too. So like, let's say that you take a trade, all the technicals line up for you. You're staying out of the way of potential news spikes. Everything looks good. You take a trade. How do you manage a position? Do you like to trail stops? Do you take profits? Do you stop out? Do you use hard stops? Like, how does your entry and exit process kind of work? Because there's so many different answers to that question. And I love asking people because you always get sort of a different flavor from each person. How do you approach entries and exits, managing positions, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I always use a stop loss first and foremost. There is always a stop loss on my chart. I know some people are for it, some people are against it.
Yes.
I've been through enough where I've seen the crazy stuff in the market where I at least want to have that safety protocol.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I'm not afraid of it because my stop loss is at a location where I know I'm wrong. So if it's hit, I know I'm wrong and I can get out. I'm not worried about being hunted or anything like that. I believe if you have smart stops, there's no concern about it. I love to actively trail my position. I'm like you, trading is tough because it's so emotional. It is extremely hard to have money like pushed into the table. You have no control over it. It's up to the market whether it's going to give you money or take you money, or take your money away. And a lot of people think going into the red, being in the negative for a trade is tough. I would say being in the positive is tougher. When you see a trade and it's green and you're counting that money and it's like, but it's got to reach here.
Yeah.
It's so hard not to take it out. So, or even think about having it reversing on you. So in a trade, when it gets to the point where I can actively manage a stop loss, that is kind of the best point for me. So my first goal is to, and it's all rules based, it's all technically based. The market has to do certain things for me to do it. But my number one goal is to eliminate my risk. So when I can get my stop loss to a break even point, boom, it's a pain-free trade. I would say I don't care what happens. I hope it wins, but at least there's no worry about losing money. And then the goal is after that to continue to lock some in on the way up. And that's how you can turn predictions that maybe don't fulfill themselves all the way. They can still be profitable trades, or at least you avoid negative trades.
Sure.
So I keep a hard target. Depending on the type of trade, I will take either a single or a multiple target. So if I'm taking a counter trend trade approach, so something against the trend where I'm just looking to capture a little bit of relief in the market, I want to do a 1 in 1 out, meaning I'm not expecting the market to kind of continue anywhere. I have a specific location where I think it's going to go. Once it goes there against the trend, I want to take my money. I want to get out of it. I want to look for the next opportunity. If I'm in a scenario where I'm with the trend, I think there's room for it to continue. That's when I'll have multiple targets where I'll take a target one, typically at a safe area. I like to put money into the account as quickly as possible at the first sign of danger. Yep. And then I'll hold on for another part of my position and see if I can get a big move out of it.
Okay, very cool. No, that's a great answer. So you're talking trailing stops with some partial profits potentially along the way, looking to scale out, take some profits off the table. Very, very cool. It's kind of amazing, Akil, because like I said, I think over the years I've watched between you, I know the rest of the guys at your team, Tier 1 Trading, Jason Greystone, and I believe Jason Stapleton was an OG back in the day. I've watched a lot of his live trades. I loved those videos. That was actually a lot of what I do on my channel now is I do a lot of like live trading where I'll like film a trade start to finish. And I loved doing that. I loved making those videos because inspiration came from his videos back in the day when he would film a trade. And so what I found kind of interesting about your answer is that in his videos, he talks about, I like to roll stops to break even as soon as I can reasonably take the risk off the table. And I've adopted that into my own trading. So it's amazing how the people who you guys kind of pioneered a lot of the YouTube side of stuff, I've subconsciously learned just listening along. So it's just a treat for me to even get the chance to speak to one of the originals. So I'm glad that you're here. And those are some great answers to the questions. Managing stops, managing trades, and one more thing that I love that you said, Akil, is that you said that, and I agree with this. Winning trades are harder to hold on to than losing trades. And I'm so with you on that, especially if your stop is relatively tight. I'm with you. My stops, when they get hit, it's not that painful because first of all, my trade size is not that big. But psychologically, if a trade is moving in my favor, every part of me, even after years of doing my style trading, which sounds similar in nature to managing positions, even after years, it's still psychologically like, oh, this thing looks great. And I really don't want to see it turn back away from me. And sometimes it does. That's the painful part. Sometimes it just does anyways, and you just got to learn to deal with it.
Learn to deal with it. There's no better answer to that. I get the question all the time. What do you do? Sometimes you can make adjustments if you make a mistake, but sometimes it's just the market. The market plays these dirty games on you, and you gotta accept it.
One more thing that you said, Akil, that I want to ask you more about. This is a big topic right now on the YouTube scene, is that there is so much, and I guess it's not new. It's definitely not new. There's this focus right now on stops getting hunted, right? There's this big conversation all about how, your stop loss is out there and market makers are fishing for your orders and that sort of thing. What's your take on that? And is it whether you think it's happening or not, how do you react? How do you does it impact your trading at all?
So is it happening? Yes and no. And this is kind of, it goes under the same, I guess, umbrella as is manipulation a real thing? Yes and no. So first and foremost, right? I think people that believe that need to understand that they are not that important that a market maker is focused on them. No one cares about our small little retail accounts. We're not that big of a fish. Exactly. It's a blessing to be a retail trader because we can kind of swim underneath the radar. I think what's more realistic is that the market, the insiders, the market makers, whatever you want to call them, it's all about crowd psychology. It's all about human psychology. And as human beings, we're pretty predictable. So it's not that hard to understand where a novice trader will hide a stop at, right? You get a number like, hey, 128 even. Oh, that sounds good. I'll put it right there. Or you
Right.
get a major level of structure. I'll go 1 pip below that major level of structure. Like, it's pretty easy to predict.
Yeah.
So I think what's actually happening is that newer traders are just putting their stop losses in predictable levels. The market is going down and grabbing them because they know they're there. They need those liquidity grabs, and then it's running off without them. So I think the solution is, instead of making making excuses for this and that, just be a little bit smarter with how you place your stop losses. Don't put them in the obvious place. Put them a little bit below, right? You're going to take on a little bit of extra risk, but you're going to get a little bit more safety. And you could say the same thing for targets as well, where, for example, if you have a level of structure, don't put it at the very high, the top pip of that structure. Maybe put it at the highest close, or put it a few pips below, and you may give up 10 pips or so on a trade, but you don't have to worry about it coming 1 pip before you and reversing. So I think it's one of those things where we just need to be a little bit smarter. And I think traders do ultimately become smarter if they're working on it, because they'll see and evaluate what happens, but they're definitely not hunting us personally. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I definitely am with you. And I think that there's like this fascination with it right now in the trading community, because I think it does act like you said. It can actually kind of act as a crutch, where people think like, oh, well, the reason I'm not making money is because someone out there is peering into my trading account and poking my stop loss, and it's like, that's a dangerous thought, because then you're just taking on a mentality of like, oh, I can never beat this guy, because it's just always, it's like you said, even if you had a $10,000 stop loss, that's really not that big compared to all the, big players that are out there. And I think, I in a similar way, like for me, I don't really change what I'm doing too much based on that idea. I still love traditional support and resistance. I like identifying zones and structure and taking trades off those. But what I will say is that conversation has made me think about stop loss placement and giving it enough room to avoid any of that potential noise. Does it happen on every single level? Maybe, maybe not. But regardless, I'm going to try and widen that stop just a little bit more to give it room in case there is a little bit of that noise or manipulation or whatever you would like to call it. I don't even like to think of it as like, oh, they're angling my position or anything like that. I just like the idea of, just widen the stop in case there is a little bit of volatility or noise at a level. Is that like, so like when you put a stop loss on a trade, do you consider like, okay, well, here's where maybe a cluster of stop losses could be, maybe I'll be wider? Does that play any role in your approach?
Yeah, I'm just like you. I will, if I'm able to, I will give myself a little bit extra breathing room. And again, it's not that big of a deal. It's still within my risk requirements. If things go my way, I'm moving that stop up anyway.
Yep.
So it doesn't make too much of a difference. But yeah, I'm okay taking a little bit more risk, and it comes from experience. So, I believe that, review and journaling is a big part of the growth and development as a trader. And if you're reviewing your trades and you consistently see that, the market is getting you by, 1 pip or 2 pips at a certain level, you just got to start putting two and two together and saying like, hey, I need to do something different. I need to make an adjustment. And that comes with the growth of a trader over time. If they're doing the work, like you said, if they're just making excuses, they're never going to do the work to fix anything. If you're doing the work, like you just mentioned, you'll just make a small adjustment, and that's all that needs to be made.
Right. Exactly. Yep. I'm definitely with you. So, Akil, I'd love to switch gears just a little bit and ask you a little bit about the markets that you trade. So, I've definitely seen you trade currencies. I've also jumped into, I think, your live streams at one point or another, and you were talking a lot about indices. Where do you find yourself spending the most time in terms of trades that you're looking for? Is it still predominantly Forex based? Do you trade crypto? Like, what markets are you most actively involved in day to day?
So currencies, 100%.
Yep.
I've gotten back into a little bit of investing. I do look at some indices and cryptos just for, the different traders that I'm working with. And some of them actually do work really, really well for my trading style. But for me personally, it's the currency market. There's enough volatility in there. There's enough options in there to kind of keep me busy enough.
Yeah.
So I focus mainly on those. And then after all these years, I know those pairs pretty well, which helps because they each have their own personality, I would say.
Yep. Do you have a favorite currency pair?
whichever one's making me the most money at the
That's a
time.
great answer. That's a great answer.
Aside from that, I'm not buying. It's different every year. I've had pairs that dollar Canada, for example, is one where I've had some amazing years with dollar Canada because I've taken some what I call home run trades where
Yep.
the technicals happen to line up with the fundamentals, and Canada is pretty easy to predict with fundamentals because they don't kind of BS. They kind of do what they want to do.
Sure.
Japan is the same way. Japan doesn't BS. They'll come out and be like, "Hey, we're devaluing our currency. You guys have at it."
Right.
You get stuff like the euro or the dollar, and we kind of we say all this stuff on both sides. Don't really give a clear answer about what's going on. So those pairs from time to time, if I'm shooting for big home runs, but aside from that, I just look at them as non-biased. Whatever has the setup is my favorite.
Sure. No, that's like I said, that's a great answer. Whatever's making you money, we'll put that down somewhere. Someone write that down. No, that's great. So on top of that, so you're trading mostly the currency pairs. So similar to myself in that way. I also focus primarily trading wise on the pairs, etc. But next up is the time frame. Are you more swing trading? Are you more day trading? Position trading? Well, what's your time frame horizon with trades?
So I started as mainly swing trader. And then so when I got into trading, I had quit 3 of my jobs and I went full into trading because I thought I'd be successful right away. That didn't work out. Long story short. Well, I guess it did work out, but not on my plan. But basically I kind of went into trading full time right away, and I was a swing trader and I had a massive amount of time in my hand. So I would start dabbling on the lower time frames and doing stuff. And it wasn't really until I started teaching that I got more into day trading because we were running live rooms and live sessions. And, if you're just doing stuff in a higher time frame, it's going to be pretty boring day after day. So we go down to the day trading. And I actually really enjoyed day trading. But about 2 years ago, I stopped day trading and kind of just went back to strictly swing trading just to open up some time. Again, as I get older, time becomes more important. I got two little guys running around, so I don't want to be, I want to have time to spend with them and whatnot. So most of my trades come from, they're executed on the hourly and the 4-hour chart, with the daily chart being my higher time frame. I think there will be a time I go back to day trading kind of once they get older and they're in school and whatnot, and invest a few hours a day on doing it because I do enjoy it. Right now, swing trading, it fits the lifestyle, doesn't take too much time, and that's something that I value.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you totally. I also trade about the same time frames. I like the flexibility of, set your trades and just they can run for a week, and like if they're still running at the end of that week, hey, I didn't have to do much and I'm still able to make money off of these trades. I mean, and this is maybe another good question for you. So like with my trades, what I usually find is that my losers are like really short time frames. Like maybe like I get in the morning, I'm out of the afternoon, but then my winners I'm in for like days at a time. Is that like a similar distribution, like time horizon wise for you?
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing. It's like, what's the, I guess it's a little bit different than the old there's an old stock saying that, bulls take the stairs, bears take the window. But I guess you can say like winners take the stairs, losers take the window, where winners, they, like we talked about earlier, that they feel like they want to torture you for a very long period of time and really make you earn it, like make your stomach churn. Losers, I typically lose right away. So if I'm in a trade and it lost, it may lose by the end of the day, or it's like, okay, well, we're out of it. We're the winners, right? I'm up at night thinking about it, like, man, I hope the Euro session, London session doesn't mess this thing up, and waking up to a surprise. And so, I'm with you on that. It's I guess I'll take it. I'd rather, if I'm going to lose, I'd rather lose right away and go on to the next thing. But sometimes it's kind of disappointing where you invest so much time in some analysis, and it's like, I finally got in, and whoop, you're out. It's like, oh.
Yeah. Well, and that actually, Akil, here's the thing too, is like, I want to ask you about this because I don't think a lot of times when people get a taste of watching traders on YouTube, whether they're watching a live trading video or they're watching a coaching webinar or they're watching a live stream or whatever, a lot of times people sort of like overestimate the ability of traders on YouTube. And people do it to me, even though I tell them not to. And they probably do it to you too, right? Like it's really easy. Like you're brand new to this stuff. People come along and they see your video and they're like, oh, Akil, he's got a great following. He's got great content. He must be winning all the time and he must know what all the markets are doing, right? And I think like deconstructing that and realizing like there's people expect that, but the reality is that you can actually be profitable while still losing a lot of trades, especially if we have similar styles where the stop is relatively tight. Losers are going to happen quickly. And for me, they happen often. I take losses all the time. It's more though, can you catch winners that erase those losses by becoming so much bigger that they cover them? So maybe just share a little bit, like, so loss streaks, what are your loss streaks like? How do you deal with them? And sort of just what is like a course of maybe 30 trades for you look like? Just however you like to answer it.
So I'll give you a really cool and painful story. But typically I'm usually about a 55% trader.
Okay.
So I don't really range. I'm basically, one loss for every one win, a little bit more for that,
Yep.
but it's, that's typically my trading style. And like you, I tell traders that I said, hey, like I'm going to win basically as much as I lose. I'm good with risk management. I'm going to, be profitable that way, but you're not going to see a 90% hit rate.
Right.
I actually worked with a trader once who his whole goal was to have a 90% win percentage. And, we went on the whole thing, like, do you really need to do that? What's the point? And I think like 2 months after I worked with him, he hit me back, give me an email, and he's like, Akil, I finally did it. I finished the month 90% win percentage. I'm like, good for you. I'm like, how much did you make? He's like, I lost money. I'm like, because he was taking profits like every
Yep.
time it went 1 pip, and the spread and that one loss got him. But so my biggest, I'll give you 2 losing streaks. These are 2 of my worst drawdowns, and they both hit kind of differently. My longest drawdown was, I don't remember what year it was, but it was basically an entire summer. It was like a 20-week drawdown, and it wasn't all losing, but the period between,
peak
previous equity highs and, next equity highs, whatever like that. And it was just during the summer. It was a slow summer, and it just dragged on. It wasn't that bad of a drawdown, but I just went break even for like 20 straight weeks, and it was horrible. Like I felt like I was putting in so much work just to get my head above water. And then as soon as I took a breath, I'm right back below. So that was a tough one. Another one this was 17 or 18, where 2 years prior, I had my best trading year. And the year after that, I had a solid year, but it wasn't like the year before. And it's December, it's winter. I'm reviewing, I'm working on some new stuff, and I'm getting myself all pumped up. This is going to be the best trading year ever. Like, all of us do that. Like, January 1st, we're getting into it. I started off the year with, it was like a 17% drawdown, which was my biggest drawdown. I just lost from January to like end of February. Couldn't do anything about it. I tried as hard as I can. I was just losing left and right. And by this point, I've had a pretty much, I had a lot of experience in the market. And I was telling traders that, hey, I'm losing right now, but it's only February, right?
Yep.
We got 10 months left. There's no reason to freak out. There's plenty of time to rebound from it. And I ended up with a very profitable year. And the story that I like to tell traders is that, at least in my experiences, every year I've been profitable for a good while now, but every year has been different. Some years I start off the year amazing, and then I dip and slow down. Some years I start off flat, and then I go up, and then I dip at the end of the year. Some years, that year I started off in a hole, and I just slowly climbed out of it for the rest of the year. So you never know when that's going to come. You just have to have the ability to deal with it, trust yourself, do what you need to do to get yourself, kind of mentally back in the right mind state, and just focus on your plan. You can't look at the small picture. You got to look at the big picture, and things typically work themselves out if you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's exactly what I was hoping to get out of you, was just, people need to hear those sort of things, because when people come to trading, they don't even fathom that you could have 2 months where you're down on your account. And 2 months is there could get way worse, right? You could have 6 months. You could have, there are plenty of super successful traders who have negative years, who have drawdowns for a year plus. Like that is something though that's hard to, I think, grasp when you're
It doesn't
new to
sell.
this
It's
stuff.
not sexy.
It's not fun, right? But that's the thing, is like, and if you started that year, 2017, where you had the drawdown, where you went January through February, and you hadn't, if you were just brand new to trading and, had that sort of performance yourself, assuming you knew all that now, you would still be like, wow, this trading thing, it just stinks. Like, I can't, this is just nothing but losses. And so many traders, they get discouraged and they quit because they have such a short-term view. but it makes sense too, because if you think about it, it's like, well, if you're just getting into this, you don't have the advantage of having the long-term view. Like you've never had a long-term performance to look back on and be like, well, hey, you know what? Things are really hard right now, but they're, going to smoothen out in the end. What I would say is that for those of you guys who are watching, know that from Akil and I's conversation here, that if you do go through the hard work and you build strategies and you test them and you spend the time learning to position size and all this sort of stuff, that if you build a strong trading strategy, even with all that work behind you, there are going to be loss streaks that seem crazy and seem so like unreasonable. And the only way to be profitable and stick around in this business as long as Akil has is to accept the goods and bads of trading. It's so important. So thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great like stories to hear for people who are newer to this stuff.
Yeah, so, no problem.
Yeah. Akil, so before we sort of wrap this thing up, I would just like to give people a chance to find you. Where's the best place? I know you have YouTube and you're also on Twitter, which is where I think I found you. What's the best place to find you?
I would say YouTube is a good place. Akil Stokes, or you can just head over to the website, www.tier1trading.com. I can tell you this, I am all over social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. It's at Akil Stokes RTM. With those places, and specifically, you just got to be careful. There's spammers out there. There are people and there's spammers for everyone out there. So just make sure you're following the right person. If someone that looks like me ever reaches out with a DM and says like, hey, how's it going? Or, hey, we want to manage your money. It's not me. So just make sure you're following the right person at Akil Stokes, RTM. Exactly. But I would say feel free to reach out. I do answer and try to answer every single message, tweet, DM, whatever it is I get. I'm like you. I believe in helping the community. I'm not a trader that's just going to be like, oh no, this is my secret thing. I'm not telling you. Like I want to help people get better. This is why I enjoy coaching. So don't be shy about asking questions. And yeah, reach out. Just make sure it's not one of the scammers. That's all.
No, it's crazy that you had to say that, because that's exactly what my last guest said. He said the same thing. He said, I have been he's like, if you look for me, just make sure it's actually me. I won't ask you for money. I'm like, I've said this, my last guest said this, now you've said this.
It's like bad.
Be careful out there, guys. Be very, very careful. And
but at some point, I would say, like, you gotta, not to get too much on it, at some point you gotta be realistic. Like with these scammers, and I feel for people that fall for it, but if someone's saying like, hey man, 100% return a day, like a little bell's got to go off. Like, wait a minute. First of all, that's not possible. Second of all, if it was possible, why is this person asking me for money if he's making 100% a day in the market? Like, I wouldn't be telling anyone anything if I'm making 100% a day in the market. I'd be on an island somewhere in seclusion. But people want that type of stuff, I guess.
Yeah, be very careful out there, guys. And please go hit up Akil. That would be awesome if he got some messages out of this. If you guys could go just say hello to him, let him know that you saw the podcast and maybe something that you enjoyed from it. Akil, thank you for sharing all the nuggets. This has been really fun, and I'm happy that you made it on.
Oh, thank you, man. Pleasure is mine. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll catch up with you later. Thanks very much, and see you next time.